The New York Knicks season ended in South Beach on Friday night as the Knickerbockers fell to the Miami Heat 96-92 in Game 6 of their second-round series. New York loses the series 4-2. So let's break down what went wrong for the Knicks in their final game of the season. We will do that with Zach Braziller, New York Post sports reporter who's back in the Big Apple after making a trip to Miami. Zach, when you look at Game 6, Jalen Brunson, despite a late turnover that sealed the game for the Heat, was great again, scoring 41 points in an elimination game. However, Brunson didn't get much offensive help. Was the Knicks' failure to help their star point guard the reason that their season is over?
It was the reason they lost Game 6, obviously. I mean, players other than Brunson were 13 of 49 from the field. But to me, it's not why they lost this series. The Heat were the better team throughout the 6 games. I don't think there's any question about that. Brunson was the best player in the series, but the Heat had the next two best players. Jimmy Butler was obviously terrific. The Knicks really had no answer for Bam Adebayo the whole series. He absolutely killed them in the 3 games in Miami. He was terrific last night. And then you also have to factor in, injuries. Look, if Julius Randle plays Game 1, do the Knicks win Game 1? Very possibly they do. If Emmanuel quickly is healthy, how does that change Game 4 and Game 6? Specifically last night, I thought they really missed quickly. Second quarter, when they went to their second unit, they took Brunson out for a few minutes. The Knicks fell apart. No quickly there, really hurt. So, yes, Game 6 they lost because everyone else didn't really show up offensively. But I don't think you could ever point to one game as the reason you lose a series. They lost this series because the Heat were the better team. And, look, the Knicks' depth wasn't nearly as good in this series as it was all year long and against the Cavs.
Yep, they simply got out-executed and outplayed by the Miami Heat here. Now, moving forward to the offseason, do you view this as an offseason where the Knicks need to make changes to the roster, or is it about continuity, growth, and development? Is that key for the Knicks for next season?
I think there's a sweet spot here between not wanting to get stale, but also not wanting to jump off too many conclusions after this series. Knicks have to be careful. 2 years ago, they basically ran back the same team except for Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, and they took a mammoth step back. Now, this team is clearly much better. They're younger. They have guys who are going to get better, but the Knicks also need to improve. They clearly need more shooting. I don't think there's any question about that. We saw that this series. I expect them to bring back Josh Hart. They're going to try to lock up Emmanuel quickly, which I think is the right thing to do. And right now, there isn't that big star that you expect to become available and something crazy happens. I think the Knicks do need to improve the roster. Maybe a DeMar DeRozan, a OG Anunoby, another wing who can shoot, who can kind of improve this team's depth, which we saw was something that was a factor. But look, the Knicks have one of the best guards in the league now in Jalen Brunson. I get the Randle, everyone upset about Randle, and he did not have a good series. But unless you're telling me you have someone to replace his production, I'm not on the let's get rid of him for nothing. I think R.J. Barrett is taking way too much of a hit here. Yes, he did not play well in Game 6. He had a very good postseason. He's 22 years old. He's a guy who lives and dies on this. You saw him post-game, an emotional player, nearly breaking down. R.J. Barrett's a guy you can win a title with. I have no doubt about it. I was so impressed by his postseason. I think Knicks fans should be happy with his development and think that maybe next year he takes a step and becomes an all-star finally.
Yeah, I think there's some encouraging things you saw with R.J. Barrett in this postseason for sure. Now, the Knicks, when you look at the season as a whole, Zach, they won 10 more games than they did the previous season. They made it to the conference semifinals. How do you assess this season for the Knicks? And are you encouraged about next season and beyond for this Knickerbocker team?
Look, I think this is the best spot the Knicks have been in a very, very long time. They're young. They have tons of assets. They have young players that have improved their value. If that big star does become available, the Knicks are going to be at the top of the list. They've proven they're now, they have a winning culture. 2 out of 3 years in the playoffs. They won a series here. I think this was a fantastic season. Look, the Knicks on paper were supposed to be a play-in team. Nobody thought they would even make the main draw of the playoffs. They were one of the last 7 teams standing. Jalen Brunson was great. Emmanuel quickly took a major step forward. I thought Mitchell Robinson had a really good year. Quentin Grimes is going to be a very good two-way player. RJ, to me, really showed you something in the playoffs. I think if you're a Knicks fan, you have to be happy. Yes, you're disappointed you didn't win this series, which really was a winnable series. But in the long run, I think you have to be happy that it looks like the franchise has finally turned a corner to being a respectable, consistent winner, at least that's in the playoff mix every year.
Knicks fans can only hope for that and hope for that future is bright going forward next season and beyond. That is Zach Braziller, who did a fantastic job. Got to give you the credit, Zach, covering the Knicks this season. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more. Draft lotteries Tuesday. Off season's coming up. A lot to talk about the Knicks moving forward. I'm sure we will be in touch about that. Thank you for all your coverage. We appreciate you, man.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on all year.
Anytime, man.